Applying the thermodynamic paradigm to human systems involves a degree of metaphor, but the application is more direct in chemistry. Prigogine is a chemist, and his theories grew out of his research in that field. So let's take a closer look at his work. Early in his career, Prigogine became interested in non-equilibrium chemical systems, and especially in reactions that create large-scale or macroscopic patterns. The best known of these are the chemical reactions known as chemical clocks. These display repeating patterns that are reliable enough to mark time, just as we depend on the regular patterns of a pendulum and a mechanical clock. But chemical clocks do not unwind. The patterns continue to repeat indefinitely, so they seem to violate the law of increasing entropy by failing to reach equilibrium, or maximum entropy. As Prigogine notes,
the discovery of chemical clocks probably goes back to the 19th century, but the results seem to contradict the idea of uniform decay to equilibrium.
Chemical clocks were largely ignored for a long time. Not until 1952 were they first analyzed by Alan Turing, an Englishman who is better known for creating the theory of computation and for helping to crack Germany's Enigma code in World War II. The surprising behavior of these special solutions called chemical clocks has been described by the chemist and critic Catherine Hales.
The solution is originally homogeneous. Soon, however, the solution flashes blue, then red, then blue again at regular intervals.
Under many far from equilibrium conditions, such as those in the atmosphere, chemical molecules often rearrange themselves to create clearly visible macroscopic effects, such as storm systems or complex wind patterns. But in chemical clocks, there's a new element. The reaction is producing new chemical substances, organized on a macroscopic scale. We see these new structures as flashes of color or spiral wave patterns. This has profound implications for the origin of life, as we'll see. Complex systems, self-organizing systems, and evolving systems are necessarily non-linear. That is, their behavior is not smooth and continuous. Non-linear systems take sudden leaps, and non-linearity is the mathematical property that's responsible for chaotic behavior. Computer scientist Christopher Langton says that nonlinearity is associated with the interactions between things. It's observed in larger, more complex systems rather than in controlled, isolated experiments.
The distinction between linear and nonlinear systems is fundamental. The key feature of nonlinear systems is that their primary behaviors of interest are properties of the interaction between parts rather than being properties of the parts themselves. And these interaction-based properties disappear when the parts are studied independently. The nonlinear system must be treated as a whole.
In chemical systems, certain types of reactions are strongly nonlinear. Prigogine says that these reactions are nonlinear because of a feedback effect, and that such reactions occur often in living systems, but only very rarely in the inorganic world.
In far from equilibrium conditions, various types of self-organization processes may occur. They may lead to the appearance of chemical oscillations or to spatial structures. The effects of nonlinear reactions have a feedback action on their cause, and are comparatively rare in the inorganic world. But molecular biology has discovered that they are virtually the rule as far as living systems are concerned.
Prigogine compares the reaction schemes of chemistry and biology.
Let us emphasize an interesting difference. As examples known in inorganic chemistry, the molecules involved are simple, but the reaction mechanisms are complex. In the Belousov-Jabotinsky reaction, about 30 compounds have been identified. On the contrary, in the many biological examples we have, the reaction scheme is simple, but the molecules, such as proteins, nucleic acids, and so on, are highly complex and specific. This can hardly be an accident. Here we encounter an initial element marking the difference between physics and biology. Biological systems have a past.
Prigogine goes on to say that
their constitutive molecules are the result of an evolution. They have been selected to take part in the mechanisms to generate very specific forms of organization processes.
So the transition from non-living to living systems apparently is a story of evolving self-organization in chemical systems. It's a story of highly specialized chemical reactions. We now see one of the fundamental differences between non-living and living systems. In far from equilibrium non-living systems, self-organization produces structures like tornadoes. These structures increase the rate at which the system dissipates energy. This dissipation tends to move it back toward thermodynamic equilibrium. On the other hand, living structures seek out or even create environments that have enough free energy to sustain life. Living organisms maintain themselves by using this dissipation of energy. In both living and non-living systems, there's a reciprocal relationship between disequilibrium and self-organization. Disequilibrium creates and maintains the structure, and in return, the structure dissipates energy and thus reduces the disequilibrium. In non-living systems, when the disequilibrium is sufficiently reduced, the structure disappears. The tornado will die out. But with living systems, another factor is involved. Living organisms seek to control the relationship so that they can always find enough thermodynamic disequilibrium to maintain themselves. They don't want to die. The factor that's unique to living systems is information. Every living organism has some sort of description or model of itself and its relationship to an environment. It acts on that information to manipulate its situation to its own advantage. This kind of information is found, for example, in the genetic material DNA, in the immune system, and in neural networks. When we deal with systems that act on this information about themselves, a whole new world of complexity opens up, far beyond anything known in the non-living world. And this new world poses many questions. According to Prigogine,
the question of the limits of complexity has often been raised. Indeed, the more complex the system is, the more numerous are the types of fluctuations that threaten its stability. How then, it has been asked, can systems as complex as ecological or human organizations possibly exist? How do they manage to avoid permanent chaos? The stabilizing effect of communication, of diffusion processes, could be a partial answer to these questions. In complex systems, where species and individuals interact in many different ways, diffusion and communication among various parts of the system are likely to be efficient. There is competition between stabilization through communication and instability through fluctuations. The outcome of that competition determines the threshold of stability.
To better understand this new conception of complexity, we must turn to discoveries coming out of a cluster of new disciplines related to the study of chaos. These disciplines include emergent computation, artificial intelligence, and artificial life.